Well, Rich here, and this is my top 5 RC car buying tips. Now, RC car buying tips. Rich, I've got $1,000. I can buy whatever I want. The most common question I get asked online is, what is the best car, say for $300, Rich? What's the best car I can buy for $300? Immediately, I fire that question back to the person asking it and say, where are you going to run the car? Where do you live? What's the terrain around you? Because every single one of these cars here is the absolutely perfect car for somebody to own. And every single one of these cars here is absolutely the wrong car for someone else to own. So much of it depends on where you live. This Lotus Super Rock Ray, absolutely superb off-road on loose surfaces because the back end needs a loose surface to drift around it. If you live in an inner city and you're running this thing on blacktop, this thing will become your worst enemy because the back end will traction roll and it will be flipping over all of the time. So you buy that car and you live in the wrong place, you are going to absolutely hate it and you're going to scratch the body to hell in no time at all. Yet that is one of my favourite cars to drive, but in the right place for it. And when I say where are you going to drive it, you need to bear in mind that thing weighs probably coming up on 25 pounds on there, so you're going to need a car to transport that around. So while you might have the money to buy it, you're going to need to think you're going to need to put that in the back of your car every time unless you've got a park right next door to your house. If you have, that's absolutely fine. Likewise, if you want something like a solid axle rock racer of a similar vein to that, you could spend a quarter of the price on this car, have the same kind of action, you could put that in your rucksack and be off on your push bike down the road without any problem at all. So the point I'm trying to get across here, guys, you need to have a careful think about where you're going to run the car. And when I talk about buying the right car for you, everybody's probably kind of got a favourite car, a favourite truck in mind. But trust me, if you buy the wrong one, it will come back to haunt you. If you're like in an inner city area and you're surrounded by lots of nice flat blacktop, then something like the Traxxas Maxx, probably not such a great proposition. Likewise, if you're in an area where you've got quite a few reasonable sized parks alongside you, Traxxas Maxx might be a great proposition. But it's about $550, does around 60 miles an hour. Now you need to think about that when it comes to running it. This Landslide XTE from Red Cat does about 45 miles an hour, but is around about half the price of the Traxxas Maxx on here. When I say the speed comes into it, 60 miles an hour is 88 feet per second. So suddenly that like 500-600 foot long playing field becomes to look fairly small. Whereas this doing 40-45 miles an hour enables you're going to be able to hold it on the full throttle for far longer with this. So that is something to think about. So even if you've got the right terrain for it, you do need to think, do I really need that speed? It is great to have that fast speed on the stuff, but you need to think about how often you may want to nail that finger to the throttle with the thing doing 88 feet per second. The chances are not as often as you think. And as I say, this video is about my top 5 RC car buying tips. They're not mistakes, they are tips so that you don't make some of the mistakes that I've made over the years. So I'm going to get onto the 4 in just a second, but the car from the outset, if you buy the wrong car, then it's pretty much game over because you could drive it around for like a month and just absolutely hate the thing. If you like lived in a really built up area and there's not a lot of straight roads around, there's not a lot of point in buying something like this Traxxas Forte, or there's certainly not a lot of point in building an overpowered armour infraction like yours truly has. Something that might be far better for you is something like this HPI RS4 Sport 3 Creators Edition, where you can fit your own motor, your own electronics on there, so you can make that thing as fast or as slow as you want. So you could start off slow and find you've got plenty of room to let the thing loose and upgrade the motor, make it go much faster. Alternatively, you might put the first power plant in and it might be absolutely fine for that parking lot that's at school just along from your house. Crawlers, I'm going to come on to in just a second, as I know they're very popular with people out there. But on the speed front, I just wanted to say, you don't have to spend a huge amount of money to go very fast indeed. Forte, probably about $400 will see you go on the other side of 100 miles an hour. That thing there, the WL Toys 144001, you invest about $30 in it and you'll push the thing up to 80-90 miles an hour without too much trouble, as Mr. Mad 2424 has proved. What I think I'm trying to get across in tip number 1 here is just because you've got say $600 to spend doesn't necessarily mean for the terrain you live in that $600 will buy you the best car for the job, because you could spend $600 and buy completely the wrong car that you just find unusable. You're having to drive an hour away to even run the thing for 20 minutes or so. But coming back to the first point I raised, when people ask me what car should I buy, Rich, I'm going to come on to brands as one of the tips later on in this video, and some of the things that I might throw up in that might surprise you a little more. But let's quickly dive into crawlers. And when it comes to crawlers, sure, you can go out and blow $600 on something like this Traxxas TRX 6x6, which is supremely capable. I love this thing to bits. Or you could go out and buy that crawler from Banggood for about $215, around about a third of the price. You might think, well, I've got $600, Rich, I'll buy this one. If you've not been crawling before, I would buy that one first of all to see if you like it. Because if you don't, you haven't wasted a lot of money. If you buy this and you find you don't like crawling, you've wasted an awful lot of money. So see my point on that. If you've not tried like a crawler yet, a monster truck yet, a high-speed car yet, don't necessarily, just because you've got that $600 budget, don't necessarily go and spend that amount of money until you're absolutely sure that you like it. You can always sell the cheaper car and you've not lost a whole heap of money if you don't like it. Anyway, some of these things I'm going to touch upon in the other 4 points in this video, but it's on to tip number 2, buying the right batteries, or the wrong batteries. Buying the right battery for the job. Bigger is not always better. Smaller is not always better either. Higher C rating is normally good, but not necessarily so in every case. There are so many different battery manufacturers out there and sizes and capacities available. It's untrue and it can be very confusing, very daunting to the beginner. So let me try and explain things a little bit. And tip number 2 is buying the right battery, and I'm sure people will have some comments to say on this. Now when it comes to batteries, yours truly prefers a higher C rating, 50 C rating and above ideally. But you don't need a high C rating all the time. Depends on the car that you are running. Nor do you need necessarily a huge amount of milliamps in your battery. Like this one is 5,200 milliamp, which makes my Traxxas Maxx absolutely fly along. People say, oh, well, you could get it to go faster using Traxxas batteries. Traxxas batteries are only 25C rated. It's a bit like going to the garage and the guy saying, oh, do you want 91 octane or can I put 50 octane in? Well, you're going to say 91 every time unless you're absolutely crazy. Yet at the same time, you don't necessarily need that like 91 octane all the time. Well, a big capacity battery like this 5,200 milliamp one might power the Traxxas TRX 6 here for a good couple of hours while you're out on the trail, giving you a huge duration. It's probably going to cost around 4 times the size of this little Venom 2,200 milliamp pack. So you could buy 4 of these, and a lot of guys buy these small packs to put in crawlers, and they mount them up towards the front where they can use the battery for the best weight distribution rather than sticking that big pack in the back. So again, a lot of it comes down to what vehicle you've chosen in the first place, but bigger is not always better. But as I say, I'm sure people will have their comments on that. So battery choice, very, very careful thought needed on that. The one thing I would say is don't be conned into buying the battery the manufacturer of your car recommends. In general, it's probably going to cost you double the amount that an aftermarket battery will do. Okay, before I move on to tip number 3, the one thing I would say when it comes to buying batteries in general, the bigger the capacity, the higher the C rating, the better they are. But just highlighting that sometimes small batteries, low capacity, can do the job just as well, and then you have just as much fun as one of these big ones do. Just remember guys, if you like what you see today, don't forget to subscribe. Well, RC car buying tip number 3 is tyres. They're one of the best investments you can make, and yours truly is guilty of being one of the worst in investing lots of money on tyres. I will show you my tyre collection in just a second, which is half what it was a month ago. Tyres, pretty much a given on just about any rock crawler you buy. One of the first investments you're going to make is buying a new set of tyres for it, whether it's an expensive crawler like this or a cheap one like that. One of the first and best mods you're probably going to do to it is change the tyres, because with crawling it's all about grip. It's not about the power about making these things monster 6S brushless power on that. It's all about the level of grip when you're out on the trail. But speaking of wasting money on tyres, let me talk you through what I've done. Well, in this deepest, darkest corner of the garage is Richie's current tyre collection. This shelf last month was also full with the same amount of tyres on here. It was just getting ridiculous. I just had way too many tyres, but far too many, yet they wear out. And you can buy them for lots of different purposes. Like I've got paddle ones for just about every sort of car imaginable, through things like the Maxx, through to things like Armour Typhon, paddle tyres, etc, etc, etc. D-Boots tyres for hooning around and smoking the tyres with on the infraction. GRP speedrun tyres, which will fit to any one of the AS Armours out on there. And through to the latest weapon of choice at this end, we've got these belted tyres from Power Hobbies, which I say are absolutely fantastic. So what's the advantage of a tyre like? Well, they'll fit to the Maxx or something like my Red Cat Landslide XTE. Now these things balloon like crazy on this truck. It's an absolute blast to drive, but the ballooning can become so much of an issue that I've got these belted Power Hobby ones which barely balloon at all at speed. Now, do you need these if you're running mainly off-road? Absolutely not. So save yourself some money. Where would these come into play and be an absolute godsend? Well, if you've got a monster truck like this or the Traxxas Maxx and you're mainly driving around a city centre on-road stuff, then definitely get a set of these Power Hobby belted tyres, because they will absolutely transform the handling of the truck, make it far more stable at speed than the stock tyres on this or the Traxxas Maxx. But if you're out in the middle of the country, then these make no sense at all. So when it comes to saving money and picking the best tyres, I would say ask around on forums, ask around on Facebook in particular, online, see what people like, see what they get on with, because the tyre which you might think's got absolutely great tread pattern, like this MX28, you might find balloons a little bit too much at speed for your liking. Also pay very careful attention to the offset of the wheels on here. Lots of things you will buy for your RC car, you might be able to take back to your hobby shop, you might be able to return to Amazon. If you run a set of tyres and find they're not suitable for your car, forget taking them back to the hobby store, because once they've been used, that is it, game over. You ain't going to be able to return them. So that is why I put this as tip number 3, tyre choice. On things like a rock crawler, absolutely essential. Other cars, less so, almost like a luxury item, and yours truly has bought those like water over the years, and I looked at it last month and I just did not need all of those tyres. So I had a good thinning out, sold out some of the ones that I was simply not using. I had pairs on there for cars that I'd sold a couple of years ago. Now RC car buying tip number 4 is buying the right or wrong motor and ESC combination. Now I've left the Traxxas TRX6 crawler on the side here because this is a great example. You could go and fit a brushless Valinian Traxxas motor to this car and make it go like an absolute rocket. But why? It's a crawler. If you're going to fit a brushless motor to a crawler, make sure it's like low on the kV, so all the torque is low down, so you're fitting it for control, not for outright speed. Likewise, don't go fitting necessarily a low kV motor to something like a mid-sized car like a Traxxas Maxx, where the thing has got absolutely bags of grunt low down, but maybe not giving you that big mid-range punch, big high-end punch that you're looking for. I could do a whole separate video talking about fitting the right motor and ESC to the right car. The other thing is, you could invest a couple of $100 in the best motor in the world, but if you haven't got the right ESC for it, there is no point in spending that big dollars on the motor. It's a bit like taking a Ferrari engine and fitting it into a Chevy pickup, but having a fuel pump for a Mini powering the thing. They think of the ESC as the fuel pump on there. The car is you're never gonna get the most performance out of that motor unless you have the right fuel pump in terms of the right ESC fitted to the car. But I will throw that one open to the table. Sure, lots of people will have their 2 pennies worth on that one. So on to point number 5, the right brand or wrong brand. So when it comes down to number 5 in my RC car buying tips, what is the right brand for you? That is a question which is entirely open-ended. Yours truly has no time for any of this fanboy stuff at all. Traxxas do some great cars, Armour do some great cars. They both do their own thing individually very, very well indeed. Traxxas, by far and away, better supply chain in terms of spare parts, etc. People criticise them for breaking more, but when they do break, do you want to wait 2 weeks for the spare part to come in the post, or do you want to be able to walk in your local hobby store and buy it that day? So you can see where I'm coming from. There are dozens of top name RC brands out there, Axial, Losi, etc. That you can choose from. So But do you need to choose a particular brand? Well, depending on where you are in the world, where you are in the country, if you're over here in the US, in places you will find Armour parts are in very good supply. In other places, they're in non-existent supply on there. Traxxas, pretty much the world over, you are going to get the supply chain when it comes to spare parts. So maybe sways me towards Traxxas when it comes to the spare parts on there. But if your local hobby store has got lots of Armour cars, carries a huge range of Armour spare parts, then I would say, yeah, go for Armour cars because they do some absolutely cracking success stuff. But I'm sure everyone will have their say as what is the right brand out there. But in my opinion, there is not necessarily any right one brand to have. It comes down to your personal preference. Are you prepared to wait a week, 2 weeks for spare parts, or do you want that access where if something breaks you can go out and get it that afternoon or the next day? I realise that's quite a contentious one as everyone has their own favourite brands on there. Anyway, if you're new to RC or old to RC, I hope some of the points that I've raised in those top 5 RC car buying tips make a difference to your next choice of purchase. But I'm particularly on point number 1, thinking about where you're going to run that car from. Because you could go out and spend $600 on a car which you think is fantastic. If you've got to drive an hour and a half to run the thing, you are going to get bored of it and frustrated with it in very short order indeed. Anyway, I will throw this open to the comments. Do have your say. And if you like this video, share it with friends. And if you loved it, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Well, thumbs up if you like this video, guys. Post any comments you might have in the comment section below the video and hit the circle below to subscribe. And if you do hit the circle, don't forget to hit the bell.